the Plutus Foundation webinar series. I'm excited to be here yet again today. I don't know if you've been watching what we've been doing over the past few weeks, but if you have, you've seen my hair getting longer and longer. There's nothing I can really do about it. So I'm sorry for those of you watching, but I am super excited today to bring Kathleen Celmins in. Kathleen is the founder of Launch Accelerator. And you know her from Stacking Benjamins, and I know her from Frugal Portland back in the day, one of the best frugal websites out there. And she also is a personal coach. So if you have any questions about marketing, personal branding, anything like that, Kathleen is definitely the person you want to come to. So welcome, Kathleen. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Harlan. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So I'm excited about today's topic, and why I'm excited about this is because we're going to be talking about the things that we've been doing here at the Plutus Foundation for the last month or so, and I know for a fact we've been doing it all wrong. So this will be a great chance for you to tell me exactly what I've been doing wrong and what the team needs to do in order to get these webinars to be more effective. And for anyone who wants to run a webinar for their business or for their brand, this is going to be a great conversation. So thank you again for being here to talk with us about that.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
So what kind of experience do you have with webinars, and how did you come upon the idea of webinars for business?
Man, I've been doing webinars for years and years and years. I remember joking with a colleague about what that word even was. And now in hindsight, that company that I worked for in, I think 2005 was on the very cutting edge, to the point where we would send out reminders to these webinars, and some were marketing webinars about our products and services at this consulting company I worked for. And some were just state of the industry reports. And I remember getting laughed out of the office one day when I said to a client, okay, well, see you on the internet. Because it was, we were doing it before Twitter was around. And so I've been doing webinars in some form for 15 years.
Wow. Yeah, that is amazing in the time of the internet. 15 years is like 2 generations. So what have these webinars done for you?
Well, webinars can do a lot for a lot of people. For me, they have, when I got bought out by my partners at Stacking Benjamins, I started fresh, and I didn't have a list. I didn't have a website. I didn't have, I was starting over, right? And so what I started doing was webinars to grow my audience, to fill my email list with potential buyers. And webinars do that better than any lead magnets out there.
So just going back a little bit, what is a lead magnet, and how does that apply to webinars? Sure. And there's just to get to the basics here, what I want to do is for anyone who's, whether they have a blog or whether they have a brand or whether they have some kind of sales or service business, how does webinars fit in with generating leads and generating sales?
Sure. Sorry, I try not to go jargony, but I think you got me late in the day, and I've left it all behind. So, what I mean when I talk about lead generating, and I talked about lead magnets and whatever, you have a website. If you have a website, you may not know it, because a lot of people who are in this space are bloggers who are blogging around topics they're passionate about, but what you have is an online business. And since you said I've been doing this for generations now in terms of online stuff, it is no longer okay. It's no longer the way to get subscribers by just saying, hey, join my newsletter. So when you hear, when you first get started online, you start blogging, you start with some sort of something you're passionate about, and then you come across some article online that says, hey, you need an email list. And you're like, okay. I remember thinking that and thinking like, well, what else would I say that I didn't just blog about? And it's a different relationship. And in order to encourage people who are reading your blog post or even listening to your podcast or whatever, consuming your content, in order to get them to take the next step with you and take your relationship to the next level, that you need to give them something that they want in order to give up their email address for. And webinars are a really good way to do that.
So would someone provide their email address and then receive access to the webinar, or would the webinar be something that people will see and then decide, well, I like what I'm hearing, I'm going to provide my email address to get more information?
You could do both. The former is much more common than the latter. A lot of times people make a whole webinar and then ask for the email. Usually it's a registration page. There are two different kinds of webinars too. Like you can have an on-demand webinar and a live webinar. And with an on-demand webinar, you go through a slide deck, you upload it to Vimeo or something better than YouTube, something higher quality. And then somebody can access that whenever they need to. Or you can run live webinars, which actually get more engagement, but are a lot more work. They're an order of magnitude harder than recording a video, but they accomplish different things. So you can build your list with people using a webinar. And the cool thing about webinars, especially now that they are not new, is that when somebody signs up for a webinar, they know that there's a pitch coming. So unlike a PDF checklist of 25 things you might need, or a spreadsheet or something else that you would download that is just pure value, then what you're getting with a webinar is people who are primed to buy. They are joining your webinar because they know that's where the discount is. And if people are looking for a discount, people are more in a buying mood than someone who's like, yeah, I need that checklist.
What are some of the things that you can sell with this process then? Because it sounds like, maybe there's a product that's on sale that you want to drive people to, and this the webinar would funnel them in a defined way that might be a little better than some other things. But what kind of businesses, what kind of things can be sold through a process like this?
It's typically a digital product or offer or service or your time. I haven't seen as much success with like physical products, books or something as much as I've seen success with info products. So if you have a course or an ebook or a 1 hour consultation with you, those are the kinds of things that you can sell really, they work out really well to sell on webinars.
So you mentioned coupons and discounts. What are some of the best offers that will be effective through a webinar format?
It depends on your business model, really. So I've worked with clients who have a premium offer who do not want to discount that premium offer because they don't want past clients to see it and think they're owed money. So those kinds of things like that, in that instance, we didn't do any discounts for her webinar. What we did was we added 6 or 7 different bonuses that expired. Whatever you have, you can sell on a webinar. And if you don't want a discount, if you don't want to offer a discount, that is totally fine. But make sure you're offering some sort of bonus that encourages real scarcity. Because one of the things that you'll notice as a business owner, when you are not like a department store or a physical store where people go in, it's really hard to have scarcity. And you can do like fake scarcity, and you can make it really complicated for yourself to like go in and open and close a cart, and all that kind of stuff. Or you can just use your webinar as a launch mechanism. Instead of having an open and closed cart, just say like, look, prices are going up June 1st. You can lock in your this price until then. Or, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily raise my prices every time I did a webinar, but you can always just offer, you know, whatever it is that you are giving clients anyway. If you spell it out like a bonus, people will feel more inclined to buy from you by a certain time.
So a lot of it is kind of in the wording and the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of content, what should people do within the webinar to drive sales or to promote their business?
I have a framework that I teach called the 30-40-30 framework. And so it's the first 30% you talk about transformation. You talk about where they are now, and then you talk about where they could be if they take the action that your offer provides. Then you talk about where they could be if they don't take the offer or they don't take the action your offer provides. So you spend 30%. So if 30% of your webinar setting that up, and then you go into the 40%, the big meaty part where you're teaching a high level overview of your course or your offer or whatever it is. Either it's a high level overview or it's one specific honed in part of your ultimate offer that you could teach in 20 or 30 minutes. And then that leads naturally into the last 30%, which is the transact section of your webinar, where you are setting, like in the middle of your webinar, you are setting people up to want more. And that's where you talk about your bonuses and you spell out everything that's included. You split it all up and you show what the value is if you bought it separately, and then you give a great bundle price, and that comes together pretty easily. The one thing I see new creators, or not new creators, but new webinar creators do is to go and teach, like if let's say they have an hour-long webinar, they spend 55 minutes trying to get through 20 hours of their digital course of content. And then they say at the end, if you want more, you should buy from me. Bye. So like what I teach is a much more structured approach where you're spending time asking for the sale and talking about the value of the sale.
So let's take that framework you described and put it into an example, maybe something that you produced for someone or someone that who listened to your thing, put together for themselves. Can you give a little more details and how that might apply to a specific business?
Sure. Yeah. So, okay. A good webinar topic is mistakes, because mistakes are something that even like the people who think that they are the best at their job, or their budget or whatever the topic that you're pitching, those are the things that get people's attention on Facebook or an email. It's like, well, I don't think I'm making any of the top 5 mistakes that most people who are like me make that cost them thousands or whatever, but I'm going to register just in case, because it's probably worth an hour of my time to make sure I'm not making those mistakes. So those are the two topics that I try to get people to like dial into are either the X mistakes your type of person is making that cost them time, money, whatever it is, or the X step process to whatever it is whatever transformation that you're promising.
So 5 steps to a healthier life, that sort of thing.
Right.
Okay. All right, great. So how do you set up a webinar?
I think a lot of people start with opening PowerPoint or Keynote or something and watching that cursor just like blink and thinking like, okay, you start with the slide. But I probably don't open a slide deck situation until I've gotten like 20% done. So the other place people like to start is talking about the tech. And I'm in my second of 3 webinars this week, and I had to switch webinar platforms 24 hours before my first one. So like the tech is tough. There is no perfect webinar technology out there. Every single one of them has their own serious drawbacks. And so that's where a lot of people stop. This week I'm using Crowdcast, and I'm really happy with it. It's very user-friendly. I have used almost all of them out there. So this is my suggestion du jour. But what you want to start with brainstorming your title. So can you think of some mistakes that people are making? And you can find your webinar topic from your course outline. If you go into Teachable and you see all your lessons, or you think about the structure, you always start with the sales page anyway. So you need to see where you want to head, and then pull back from there and come up with a way that you can get their attention and make them want to take the next step, or some of them want to take the next step.
Okay, so determining the title is basically the first thing. Consolidating what you want to say and putting that into something that's going to catch people's attention. How do you build your plan or your outline? How do you know what you're going to say in this webinar?
Well, I have a big old brainstorming template that I walk through with clients. So because I do offer a done with you webinar service that people will walk through with me, and we brainstorm it together. I will record our brainstorming session and turn that into slides. So it's basically the questions that you want to ask. And if you didn't want to do that with me, find a webinar that you like, that made you want to buy, and redo those slides for your topic.
Okay. And how do you get the word out about the webinar?
Honestly, you can get it out through a number of different ways. If you want attendees, which you do, because interactivity is best on live, send it to your email list. But remember that your webinar is a vehicle that builds your email list. More than looking for sales, you are using this as a tool to build your email list. So, ads.
Okay.
Sending Facebook ads to a registration page.
And do you have any suggestions for how to write an ad that's going to be effective to have people sign up for a webinar?
Yeah, you can just pull it from the registration page. Are you making these mistakes in your business or hobby? Join us for this free 1-hour live webinar. You need to say that it's live. And we're going to talk about this, and this, and this, and then put a picture of yourself from the registration page.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Crowdcast is one of your favorites right now. People are using all different technology. We're using Zoom and Facebook Live. So what makes Crowdcast why are you recommending that right now?
It's really user-friendly in that the page, the URL, first of all, it's all web-based, so you don't have to have the client, which is, I guess, less of an issue today than it was 2 months ago, because now everybody has Zoom. But it's an easy, straightforward, one-click registration. The URL stays the same, so you go to the URL to register, and it's the same URL you go to when it's live. It lets you set up a series. So I'm doing webinars on different times and different days based on people's availability. And it's all just very easy.
Okay, great.
And it works.
Yeah. Well, working is necessary. That's for sure. How much time does it take to build a webinar?
Oh, all in probably about 10, 12 hours. And that's with all of the pieces.
Is there anybody who shouldn't run a webinar, or there's no purpose, it wouldn't help them?
Yeah, I think product-based businesses, I mean, 10 reasons you need this pair of shoes is not really that helpful. Right. You should spend your time on content marketing and stuff like that. And people who don't have anything to sell. Okay. I have talked to people who want to do webinars and they're like, but I just don't know what I would send them to at the end. I don't know why you would like, you need to have something to sell.
So you have to have a real clear call to action at the end that's going to result in something that's going to benefit the business. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. I think we kind of covered everything. I haven't seen any questions come in. So is there any way that people can reach out to you?
Well, yes, I am at KathleenCelmins.com, and I'm running a group coaching program in a couple of weeks, starting the first week of June. I'm calling it the Launch Accelerator. So if you go to KathleenCelmins.com/TLA, you can learn more about that. And it's basically every single piece of a marketing campaign condensed into a 4-week timeline, because I learned that people don't like marketing as much as I do. People don't want to spend their whole days, weeks, months doing sales pages and emails and webinars and all that. So what I've done is condensed it into a very tight time frame.
We do have a question. It just came in. Cool. This is great. Thank you for sending this in. Can you tell us a little more on how you made Kayla Sloan's course work?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I have a huge case study about that. I think it's KathleenCelmins.com/10KVA marketing ideas, all one word. And Kayla's, honestly, live webinars. She ran the same live webinar to different audiences every week. Nope. Once a week, 1 week a month. So 3 or 4 times in a week, every month. Okay. For a year.
Wow.
By the end of last year, she said, please make me a different one. I never want to look at these slides again.
So how did that work for Kayla?
We 4x'd her revenue from year over year. So she went from $25,000 to $101,000. So $25,000 in 2018 to $101 in 2019.
And that's in sales?
Yes. Yeah. Top line.
That's amazing. So as everyone gets out of the house and back to work and everything, are webinars still going to be really successful and useful, and will people still want to hold them?
That's a really good question. I think so. And we were talking about this offline. A lot of people were already working from home. And so my life doesn't look that different after everything opens back up, which is tomorrow in my state. But for a lot of people, it does matter. So taking Kayla, for example, her course 10K VA was teaching people who had jobs, who maybe didn't like them, how to transition into virtual assistant work. And so a big pitch, a big marketing angle for her was, you don't have to work on somebody else's timeline. You can work on your own timeline. So for her webinars, after working hours were better. The more people signed up at 5 o'clock than they did at 10 a.m. So it's kind of just a matter of when you think people are available. I worked with another client who had people like doctors as clients. And so those people just didn't have any availability. So a lot of what that was like, okay, well, we'll just pick a window and definitely make sure to record it.
That makes a lot of sense. So for those who kind of want to go as automatic as possible and kind of produce one webinar and have that going, how often should they think about refreshing and changing up the content? I
mean, I would say there's no upward limit. Like if you decide like, I want to work on this, like, yeah, great. But what I tend to do with clients is, especially if they're asking those kinds of questions, which seem to indicate that they don't want to do webinars, is that I'll say, okay, you don't have to do anything live. Let's do one on demand. So we'll do the whole brainstorm, but what you're going to do is you're going to record yourself going through the slides, and then we're going to have it available as a lead magnet on your website. With the client that just did that, she sent me a note later and said, wait, somebody subscribed through this. And I said, well, that's how it works. And she was very surprised because she had not been sending traffic to that page. And so like getting to that point where you have one that's on demand, if you start, usually when you release one, you immediately get a bump of subscribers. Because of the way we deploy them, you want to put it in an exit intent and whatever. And once that starts to taper off, switch topics, see if something else works. But it should be a decent email capture device. It should probably like double the number of daily subscribers that you're getting through ConvertKit or whatever. And once it stops doing that is when you would want to switch it up.
How easy is it to integrate the webinar into things like ConvertKit or Aweber or MailChimp so that you can collect the information that you're looking to do?
Easier than people make it sound. Because I do want to, can I step on a soapbox real quick?
Go right ahead.
The webinars that are like, just happen to be starting 5 minutes after you see a Facebook ad for them. And then they're like the chat is full of people saying, wow, good point. And Sally from Albany is chiming in. People are hip to that. Do not try to trick people. Your fake live webinar destroys your credibility in a way that an authentic one will build it up. So just embed a video into a page on your website, and then put a email opt-in before people can see that. It's so much easier because then all it is connecting the pop-up thing to your email. And then just like in all marketing, the success of your campaign is dependent on the quality of your emails.
So 2 questions then. Do you need a lot of technical knowledge in order to do all of that? It sounds very technical, and I don't know what kind of automated systems that are in place to do that. Is there any way to automate that?
I mean, it's not very technical other than like recording a video and uploading a video. Okay. I guess that is kind of technical, but honestly, and this is true about everything in marketing, it just comes down to story. If you can tell a story, tell it over email, connect it to your link to your sales page. The hard part is the story. The technical stuff can be outsourced easily. It can be learned easily. The most important thing is the story, and not your story necessarily, but the story of transformation of people who have gone through your system, in their words, in your words, however you want to do it.
Testimonials and comments from former clients or former students, whatever it might be, right?
And screenshots of like your Facebook reviews or something that makes it clear that it's real.
And you talked about the quality of the email being so important. What are some of the components that need to be there for the email to really be effective?
Wow. So email is where a lot of people get tripped up, actually, because they with creators especially, people who get into business because they have a message that needs to get out to the world. They have a hard time with separating their message from a message that helps build their business. But it's important to set up your emails so that you are you have to have from a webinar like 12 to 15 emails before you let them out of the post webinar sequence and into your weekly newsletter. And
so that's like just a sequence of 12 to 15 emails that are going to automatically come into someone's inbox after they've viewed the webinar.
Right. Okay. So they get one that the first one is, thank you for registering. Here's the replay. And then you just basically rewrite your webinar in email form, where here are the 5 mistakes. Which ones are you making? Hit reply. Try to get engagement with that. Not every single email needs a link to the sales page. Most should, but not all of them do. You want to have at least 1 or 2 emails that are just like, here's what Sally from Albany had to say after she bought this is what her life looked like before. This is what her life looks like now, and that transformation process.
Okay. All right. So anything else that everyone should know about the effectiveness or how to be effective with webinars?
The best way to think about it is to think about it as a process and not like a blog post. Like right when you write a blog post, you're done with it, right? With a webinar, it's different. You could have technical difficulties. You could have picked the wrong time of day. Don't just do it once. If you have a slide deck, you need to be putting that slide deck in front of different audiences until you're tired of it or until it stops working. And it's not necessarily going to work right away. Your conversion rates are going to be pretty low, but better than you're going to get from anywhere else. So just keep trying, use it as a tool in your promotion tool belt. I would say don't do a whole bunch of different webinars. Get good at one. Treat it like a play, and you're an actor.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I like that. So we're going to wrap up again, and I'll ask you to explain where people can find you again, and we'll probably edit it out when we get to replay this. But since we had some additional questions after we kind of exited earlier, we'll give you another chance to just say goodbye to everyone and how they can reach you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me, Harlan. I can be reached at KathleenCelmins.com. And if you want to join me in June, head over to KathleenCelmins.com/TLA. And hopefully there will be a link to that because my name is not that easy to spell.
We'll definitely include a link in the Facebook Live, and we'll continue to make sure that everyone's aware of where they can find you. So thank you so much.
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.